Hi. Please welcome Irv Smith to First Quarter, Say His Name, where we're talking about our late friend and teammate, Demetrius DuBose. Irv, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, John. It's so good to be here with you today, man. And I'm looking forward to having the opportunity for us to talk and reminisce about our good friend Demetrius.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, what life was like before Notre Dame for you.
Well, I'm originally from New Jersey. I was actually born in the capital of New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey, which is a rough part of town. You know, my parents were both born and raised there. They went to Trenton High School. The toughest thing they had to do every day was get up, go to school, and find their way back home without getting shot and killed. I mean, like, it's just a tough area. And so when I was about 2 years old, my parents, my brother was about 4. My parents made the decision to move us to the suburbs, which is about maybe 30 to 40 minutes outside of Trenton, New Jersey, to an area where it was brand new. You know, working community, was near a military base, or a couple of military bases, as a matter of fact, Fort Dix and McGuire Air Force Base in South Jersey. But just a small little country town that I was fortunate enough to grow up in that town with a bunch of young kids like myself. And today, till to this day, a lot of those people are my closest friends because we built bonds from the time I was a baby. But it was a much better environment, and I give my mom and dad so much credit and thanks for, you know, biting the bullet. You know, they couldn't afford, sometimes they couldn't afford the home, and they couldn't afford things, but they found a way every day to pay the bills and keep me and my brother in that same community for our entire lives.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I saw you in college. We met in 1992. You were our returning co-captain, first string tight end, and I was a walk-on tight end, going through two-a-days with the rest of you guys. And I just have very enduring memories of you and the type of leader you were. You know, you went to work every day, and no matter how tough practice got, it never affected how you carried yourself. And that's something that really stuck with me. In spite of me carrying myself like a hot mess a lot of the times, but seeing someone like you and the way you led our team, and Rick Meyer and Demetrius DuBose and Devon McDonald, I mean, the four of you as captains, again, like, I think of all of you every day. And I want to thank you right now for how you carried yourself and for the way you treated me. I mean, you treated me like I was a starter too. And I'll never forget that.
Well, John, those words, they ring really strong in my ear. You know, I haven't, of course, graduated almost 30 years ago. I was 21 years old, actually, when I left college. I was actually a baby. But you don't really know how people perceive you, especially 30 years later. I'm like, I wonder how, number one, how I was. I wonder how people perceive me, and I wonder how, people felt around me. And those words make me feel good because, it lets me know that, I was at least on the right track. I was still a young kid, didn't know a whole lot about anything, but, I just know that I was around some great people. I know that our environment was amazing with our coaches, with our leadership. And I just feel great that I was a part of that. And it was so cool that you were actually a tight end with me. I mean, we were, once again, you may have been a freshman when I was a senior, but the crazy thing about it is, we were 3 years apart. But when you're 3 years apart, when you're 19, 20, 21, that's huge. But when you're 3 years apart, when you're 46, 47, 49 years old, it's a whole different ball game. And so it's great that we've grown up and we've all had our experiences in life. But I tell you what, when I look back on my Notre Dame days, my Notre Dame brothers are the closest brothers to me in this world. And I'm grateful that I was a part of that with you as well. Thank you for that.
Yeah, man, of course. It's something that will never die. It doesn't matter how many years go by or how long it's been since you've seen someone. It's instantaneous right when we're in the room with each other. And it's something you can feel. It's a visceral feeling. You can feel it in our bones, in our hearts. And it's beautiful.
What's funny is I was talking to a friend the other day, and she'd asked me about sororities and fraternities at Notre Dame. And I said, well, at Notre Dame, we didn't have those. And then she did make a comment. She said, what's crazy, though, is you guys sort of had your own fraternity. And I said, the truth of the matter was our football team was a fraternity. We weren't one of those fraternities that the schools consider or claim. But when you really think about it, we didn't need any other fraternity because we were our own fraternity. And, it's our fraternity for life. We didn't have to go through all those things that those other fraternities go through. We went through the football life, and that made the bond for us, and that bond will be there forever.
Absolutely. What is it like to be a captain at Notre Dame? What kind of added pressure does that add to what's already very pressure-filled, especially under Coach Holtz? I remember Demetrius, one of his quotes was, "The hardest thing about Notre Dame was the pressure Coach Holtz put on us." And I just want to know if you could speak to that, especially being one of the captains.
Well, what's funny to me is, I was in a fortunate position. When I took my recruiting visit to Notre Dame, I met with Lou Holtz, Coach Holtz, like everybody did on the Sunday on our transition out to go back to our respective homes. And Coach Holtz sat me down in his office and he told me, he said, "Irv Smith," he said, "we've got a tight end here by the name of Derek Brown. He's an All-American. He's a freshman. He'll be a sophomore your freshman year. We love him. He is going to be our starting tight end for the next 3 years. If you choose to come to Notre Dame, you will be his backup for 3 years. But I can assure you this, your senior year, you will play. You'll have an opportunity to play in the NFL if you're good enough." And the funny thing was, that was the reason before I took my trip to Notre Dame, I didn't want to go to Notre Dame because of Derek Brown. And after my visit and after me spending time, of course, with D. Brown and then spending time with Coach Holtz, that was the exact reason I went to Notre Dame, was because of D. Brown. And for 3 years, D. Brown helped groom me. I watched him every day, spent time with him every day, worked with him every day, and he groomed me to be the player that I was my senior year. So I didn't feel any pressure, because when you're prepared, they say if you get ready, if you stay ready, you never have to get ready. And the truth of the matter was, when I got to my senior year, it just felt natural because I was playing behind D. Brown for 3 years, and I just felt like it was my turn. And getting voted as a captain was one of the greatest honors to me, because it let me know that my teammates looked at me as a leader, and that's all you can be on a football field, on a football team, is a leader, and that's what I wanted to be. So I didn't feel any pressure. I just, all I felt like was, it's my turn, my time, because I had the opportunity to watch players like Derek Brown and Todd Light and Chris Zorich, and I could name drop all day long about the guys that I played with, aside, behind, next to. But I had so many great guys that showed me the way to do it, that all I felt like I was doing was just following their footsteps.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's quite a list of players when we were there. What's your first memory of Demetrius DuBose?
Well, my first memory, believe it or not, Demetrius and I, we were on the same recruiting visit. So, I mean, I met Demetrius when I came to Notre Dame. Benny brought us all on campus, and Demetrius, this kid from Seattle, Washington, and I didn't even really know where Seattle, Washington was. I just knew it was on the West Coast, and I'm this young 17-year-old kid from Trenton, New Jersey, or Browns Mills, New Jersey, and we just met. And I still wasn't sold on Notre Dame. I actually, believe it or not, when I got to my recruiting visit, I actually had just committed to go to the University of Clemson. And Benny Serrato knew, D. Brown knew, Rodney Culver knew, all the guys that spent time with me. They knew that I was going to Clemson. I only came to Notre Dame for a free trip. And Demetrius was in. He was like, "Hey, he was just like, it was always like he was on vacation. He was like, "I'm going to Notre Dame." He's like, "I'm here." And I was like, "Well, hey, good to meet you, bro. I'll probably play against you one day, but I'm not coming here." And it wasn't until the end of my trip that I made that decision. But when I met Demetrius, we were just two young kids trying to figure out where we were going to go to school at. And he was so calm about it, because for whatever reason, his decision was already done. He was in, and I wasn't. So once I did commit, and I, going to school there, and we met at training camp. We were there a week. We were there a week early because we played in the kickoff classic. So all of us rookies had to come in early, and we also came in early because we played a week early in the kickoff classic against Virginia. So we all showed up as these bright-eyed, bushy-tailed guys, and I just remember Demetrius walking around campus. Demetrius always walked around with his chest out, head up. I mean, he was just one of those guys that he just exuded confidence. And in Notre Dame, when you're a freshman, that's the one thing you don't have because you're walking around with all those guys like Tony Rice's. And like I said, I mean, I can sit here name drop all day long. As a freshman, you don't walk around with your chest up and your shoulders back because you're sitting there just trying to figure out how to fit in. And he was one of the 25 freshmen there that walked around like he was a junior or sophomore on his, or junior or senior on his freshman year at Notre Dame.
Yeah, that sounds like him. What kind of player was he in college?
The only word I can say for him is reckless, you know, and meaning reckless meaning he threw his body around. That dude just, like I said, he played, you know, most freshmen don't play. Demetrius was on the field the second he walked on campus. And I just remember him with that slim waist and long legs and that big wide upper body. And he was strong as an ox. I'm talking about from day one. I was weak. When I came in, I played baseball my whole life. So when I got to Notre Dame, I was barely benching 225. I mean, I was one of those guys that, you know, you walk in the weight room and the first three benches are for the receivers and, you know, defensive backs. And then the next 4 or 5 are for the Aaron Taylors and the Tim Ruddys and the Demetrius DuBose. You know, he was a linebacker, but he lifted like he was a defensive lineman. And I was over there with the receivers. I was a tight end, but I didn't even lift with D Brown. I was actually Oscar and D Brown lifted over there with the big guys, and I was over there lifted with the wide receivers and the defensive backs because I was a baseball player and I was fast, but I wasn't real strong. And Demetrius was that guy that got in that weight room, man. He was, like I said, he wasn't the defensive end, but he was lifting with those big guys, throwing weight around. And I always admired him because he was not only physically strong, but he was so mentally strong.
Yeah, he really was. And a great student athlete too. Graduated in 3.5 years with international finance and or international business and finance major. I remember seeing him in the library. And when we would go to the library, it was like to socialize, for me at least, to hang out, walk around, see my friends. But I'd see him in there and he would be not doing that. He'd be studying. He was very disciplined to me, from what I saw.
Yeah, like I said, he was very, you know, the thing about him was, and the thing that admired him most about him is he knew Notre Dame didn't play. There was two sides of Notre Dame. There was the football side, but there was the academic side. We learned from the day we walked on that campus, if you don't handle the academic side, they don't care how good a player you are. They were going to take you off the field. I watched it. Demetrius watched it. We saw players that were great on the field that were slacking in the classroom. And we would actually watch Coach Kelly, who I'm sure you remember Coach Kelly, the guy that would walk into the practice field. And if any other coach walked onto that field, Coach Holtz would stop practice and go crazy because Coach Holtz was the emperor. He was the ruler. He was the king. You did not walk on his field unless he told you to. The one person that I recall in my 4 years at Notre Dame that could walk on that field and part the Red Sea, and Coach Holtz would not say a word, was Coach Kelly. Coach Kelly would say, I need this player, this player, this player. Come with me, bring everything. And Coach Holtz did not say a word. And we saw that. And so Demetrius was smart enough to know, as good as he was on the field, if he wanted to stay on the field, he had to be one of those guys that made sure he took care of his business off the field. And he took care of his business, like you said, graduated in 3.5 years, and he did his thing. And that's one of the things that made us so proud of being a teammate of his. He wasn't just a great football player, but he also did the Notre Dame way, and he took care of his academics as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you ever have a chance did you hang out much with him off the field, socially?
Demetrius was one of my closest friends. I mean, you have to understand, you know, I would say that the closest guy to Demetrius was probably Nick Smith, who was my roommate, and then Junior Bryant, who was also one of my roommates on the road, and then me and Demetrius. It was almost like we were the four amigos. It was Demetrius, it was Nick, it was Junior, and it was me. And so, I spent so much time with Demetrius. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that was my guy. I mean, he was my classmate. He was my buddy. You know, we were captains together, but that was senior year. But first 3 years, it was always the four of us: Junior, Nick, Demetrius, and myself. So obviously, we spent a lot of time together, even up until his unfortunate demise when he passed. I was in San Diego the year the Super Bowl was there, which was 2 years earlier, 1997, and I was with Demetrius. It was me, Demetrius, and Junior. So, you know, I my memories with him are so fond because from the time we got to Notre Dame to the time that he passed, we were thinking of it. And then the year before that, the Super Bowl was in New Orleans, and guess where I was playing? In New Orleans. Once again, Demetrius was in New Orleans with us for the Super Bowl. Me, Demetrius, Dick, Junior, the rest of the whole crew. Like we were a crew. It didn't stop after Notre Dame. That was just the beginning. And so spent lots of time with Demetrius through the years in college, spent a lot of time with him after college. And when he passed, it was one of the worst things that happened to me in my life, because that was 22 years ago. I was a baby back then.
Yeah, absolutely. And so tell us what some of your memories are, just your most enduring memory of Demetrius off the field, or a story that you could share, you know, anything. Like, what comes to mind when you think about a time you had together?
It has to be one that I could share, obviously. No. One that I could actually share publicly. We had so many great times together, but you know, it's so hard to think of it. You know, at the end of the day, all I can tell you is we always had a great time together. Demetrius was certainly a unique individual. You know, he was not your norm. He was so much more. I'll tell you, one of my best memories of him was I believe it was probably my rookie or second year. We were down in it was my rookie year or my second year. I can't remember which one it was, but we were down in, probably was my rookie year. We were down in Tampa. He was with the Buccaneers, and Tommy Carter just got married. We were down there for Tommy's wedding. That's what it was. We were down there for TC's wedding, and it was me, Demetrius, TC. Who else? I mean, I think it was one of the Jeff Burris or
Ron Moore.
Yeah, it was a bunch of us, man. It was just a bunch of us. We were actually in Demetrius. I believe at the time he had a Jeep, and he had the top off, and we were in the Jeep. We were driving on the beach, and just hanging out with him, and it was so cool to me because we were all just in college. We were broke college kids, and now we're in the NFL, and I'm with Demetrius. He's got his Jeep, and we're on the beach, and we weren't broke. You know, and it was just such a cool time for all of us because we were these kids that had money, but we were the same kids. We were all having fun and acting. It was no different than when we were at Notre Dame. The only difference was we had a couple of nickels to rub together. Nice. And I'll never forget that moment because we weren't at Notre Dame, but it was nothing but Notre Dame guys, and we were all together, just as if we were at college. But the difference was the setting. But we were all the same guys.
Beautiful, beautiful. I can picture it. What was it like to transition from Notre Dame to the NFL? What kind of a transition was that?
Well, the tough transition for me was I was with the Saints back then, and as you know, the Saints are a great program today, but they weren't the same program when I was there. Some people refer to them as the Aints, and I come from Notre Dame. My fondest memory was I remember going to it's funny. I live in Arizona. I remember coming out here and playing the Arizona Cardinals my rookie year. And my first 5 games of the season, we were undefeated that year. We beat everybody. We went to Pittsburgh, and we lost in Pittsburgh game 6, so we were 5-1. Then we came out here to Phoenix, and we played the Cardinals. But every game we played up to that point, you know, we come out, you know, pre-game, do our thing, stadium's full, play the game. We won. I felt like it was at Notre Dame. We won every week. And then we lost against Pittsburgh. It was a good game. We lost. Okay, you're not gonna win every game. So we came out here to Arizona, and we go in. We do pregame, and the stands was kind of bare. But I say, hey, it's pregame. And then we go into the locker room, and we come out for introductions. And I go to one of my buddies and say, dude, what's going on? He said, with me. I said, are we playing a game today? Seriously, he's like, yeah. Why? I said, there's nobody here. He said, Irv, this is Arizona. He said, nobody comes to watch these games. And dude, I'm telling you, I never played a game in college in front of a crowd that had one open seat. Right. I didn't understand. In my mind, that's how football is supposed to be. And now I'm in the NFL. I'm like assuming that every game is going to be full and it's going to be a packed house and it's going to be exciting. And literally, it was eye-opening to me to realize it's not the same everywhere. You go to Notre Dame and you've got people fighting over tickets, and it's just how it is. And you get the NFL, and it's like you can give the tickets away. You can't even give some of the tickets away. There's not enough people. You got there and you give away, nah, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? And so it was just so eye-opening to me when I got to the NFL and I realized that every place is not like Notre Dame. And that's college. This is the NFL. I felt like I took a step backwards. And we started the season off 5-0 that year. We ended the season 8-8.
Wow.
Can you imagine winning your first 5 games and losing the next 8 out of 11? And we ran out of gas. We had a bunch of older guys on the team. It was my rookie year, so I'm the youngest guy on the team. Literally, I was the youngest guy on the team because I was an early guy. When I didn't even turn 21 until October of my rookie year. You know what I'm saying? Because I came out of high school early, graduated college at Notre Dame. So by the time I got to the NFL, when I got drafted, I was still 20 years old. So I didn't turn 21 until October. So I'm in the locker room with a bunch of 30, 35-year-old guys smoking cigarettes. You know what I'm saying? with 3 and 4 kids, and I'm 20 years old, bright-eyed, bushy tail, coming from Notre Dame. So it was just different, but you know what? It was eye-opening for me because it allowed me to learn that there's multiple sides to the NFL, and every place is not like Notre Dame, and Notre Dame is a very special place. And I can tell you that the reason I went to Notre Dame, and I know I'm going on, but Rodney Culver told me after they won the national championship in 1988, he said, Irv, if you come to Notre Dame, he said, I guarantee you're going to play big-time football. I guarantee you're going to play on TV every single game you play here. He said, but the number one thing you're going to do is you're going to get a great education, and you're going to be a Notre Dame guy for the rest of your life, and it's going to change your life. And that's what made me make the decision to come to Notre Dame. And I can honestly tell you that it was the greatest decision I've ever made in my entire life. And that's the truth. I
feel you. I feel the same way. I'm here, as you know, it's still, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here right now talking to you. And we wouldn't be talking about Demo. What was it like to transition out of football? What is that like?
Well, I'm gonna tell you this, John. I was very fortunate. Not everything was rose petals and chocolate milk. Life's been difficult for all of us. At the time when I had played 5 years in New Orleans, then I went to San Francisco, and the same guy that took me to the same guy that took me to Notre Dame, a guy named Vinny Serrato, which you know very well.
Yep.
Vinny actually was the general manager at the 49ers, and he took me to the 49ers. I signed a 2-year contract there, and then after 1 year of that contract, I ended up getting traded to the Cleveland Browns, the Browns' inaugural season, the new Browns in '99. So I played my second year of my contract in Cleveland, and then I actually was about walked away from the game because I couldn't stand the direction the NFL was going in and the coaching, and it was just getting too much for me. So I actually semi-retired, came back to Arizona, gained about 30 pounds, and was literally done with football. I get a phone call from Vinny Serrato, the 2000 season. Irv, we need you in Washington. I'm like, Vinny, I'm done. He's like, Irv, just come out. Coach North Turner wants to see you. I was like, all right, cool. So I went out there. I went through a workout for them, me and 3 other tight ends. I was the worst guy out there because I was out of shape. And they said, Irv, listen, we know you're a good ball player, and we want you on the team. We need you on the team. Go home and lose those 30 pounds and show up for training camp. I was like, man, all right, cool. So I came back to Arizona. This was like in May. I had about a month and a half to lose 30 pounds and get back into shape. I did it. Showed up for camp with Vinny. They were very happy. I got about halfway through training camp, and I was like, I'm done. I knew I was done. Everything was right except for this. I could not put myself through another grueling season dealing with the NFL ever again. It was a great thing that I did for the first 7 years, and I was just done. So I literally was in between. So that morning I get up, I go to we had 2-a-days, and back then you actually had 2-a-days. It wasn't like they do today where they don't even have 2-a-days. But I will say this: the first practice was a walkthrough. It was the toughest practice of my entire career, mentally.
Wow.
I wasn't there. I was like, it was a walkthrough. I'm like, Irv, I've been through grueling. Mike Ditka was my coach season 4 in New Orleans. And when I tell you, if I told you the stories about those practices, those were 2-a-days. It was like going through 2 of Coach Holtz's 2-a-days in the NFL. So if I can make it through those, I should make it through anything. Well, long story short, after that first walkthrough practice, I went in, I called my agent, I said, I'm done. He's like, Irv. He's like, you sure? He said, go talk to, at that time, so Benny was there, and also Dwight Clark was there, who's the one that brought me from San Francisco, and Carmen Policy. So I go, I see Dwight. I said, Dwight, I can't do it. He said, go see Norv Turner. So I go and see Norv. I said, Coach Turner, I can't do it. He said, Irv, listen, here's the deal. Take a month off. In a month, if you want to come back, your spot's waiting for you. I said, all right, cool. Packed up my locker. I left. I went home to New Jersey where my family was. I ended up flying out to New Orleans, spent time with my son, went to Arizona. They called me a month later, and I was like this, I'm done. And literally, John, I have not looked back. And the reason I tell you that story, man, because it wasn't something that I planned. I didn't plan on retiring that day. I planned on going through practice. And something just told me enough was enough was enough. And I always equate it to this. It's almost like, let's think about this. You date a girl. We've all had girlfriends. We've all dated people. You date a girl, and one day you just say, you know what, this ain't the right girl for me, and you just break up with her. Down the road, John says, hey, remember that girl you dated? Yeah. Oh, yeah, she was a cool girl. She wasn't the right girl for me. Well, let's move forward and say it's the same situation, the same girl, but that girl breaks up with me, breaks my heart. 20 years later, John asked about that same girl, said, nah, man, that girl, she ain't no good, man. That girl was no good. You know, the feeling is different because they broke up with you. Well, the NFL is that girl. The NFL is either going to break up with you or you're going to break up with the NFL. And I was very fortunate, John. I can honestly tell you it was by the grace of God, because any time they could have cut me, kicked me off the team, but I broke up with that girl for some reason. And now 21 years later, I don't look back on it except to say it was a great experience in my life, but I'm grateful that I broke up with them and they didn't break up with me. And I say that because I have a lot of friends that played in the NFL, and the last call they got was, hey, bring your playbook, and they're done with you. They never get a shot again. And now the rest of their lives, as far as they're concerned, the NFL is that girl that broke up with them. And I'm just grateful, man, that when I was done, I was done. God gave me the opportunity to walk away from it. I look back on it with great memories. In 5 years, I start collecting my NFL pension. They're going to pay me for the rest of my life. Guess what? What a blessing that's going to be. And the best part about it was I was fortunate enough, at least at this point, I can tell you, I don't have CTE, don't have any symptoms. I'm very grateful for that, because the position that I play, tight ends, a lot of tight ends don't get CTE because the way we play. We're not that guy that's coming in with our heads. We're not tackling anybody. We're not told to put our head on the football. You know, positions like linebackers and safeties and quarterbacks, all these guys that get concussions typically, those are the guys that are getting that CT. I was very fortunate because I played in a time where there was no concussion protocols. There were no, only thing they did for us is say, here, use this smelling sauce. What color is that jersey? Go out there and play again. So once again, you know, my retirement experience was I was very fortunate because God led me down a path to retire on my own and not have to be retired, but not a lot of guys are as fortunate as I was.
Right on, my man. I'm happy for you. I
Thank
really
you.
am. Deserve it. So let's go to July 24th, 1999. Where were you when you heard the news of Demo?
I was in training camp with the Cleveland Browns. And how I heard the news was Oscar McBride called me. Oscar called me because it was on Oscar's birthday. I'll never forget it. And he called me in Cleveland and told me, and I was in disbelief. I said, stop lying. I said, that's not true. And it wasn't back when they had social media and all the internet. I mean, all this stuff that exists today where something can happen and go viral. We didn't have that back then. So you're calling around people to see if it's true, and you're hoping that it's a hoax and things like that. But I remember having to go through practice and having to find out and having to continue to go through practice because, you know, they didn't, you know, they weren't going to stop a practice or anything like that because a former player had passed away, and I had to fight through it and then deal with it. I couldn't even go to the services because it was right in the middle of training camp and get ready for our first game. And I was in Cleveland that year. And of course, we had an early in because we were the new expansion team and stuff like that. So it was just a tough time, man. And, you know, we all bound together, and the guys that were close to Demetrius, all of us supported each other and helped us get through those times. But it was a tough time for all of us, man. And I mean, it's still to this day, it's a tough time for all of us.
I know, and I really appreciate you being here with us today and sharing your feelings. I know it's hard for you. And I want to ask you a couple more questions. The next one is about, so you hear, you're obviously crushed, devastated, but what are your thoughts about what happened? What did you hear? What exactly happened on that night? And then what did you take away from that?
Well, there's lots of stories that went around, and obviously none of us were there. But the only thing that I do know is that he was shot in the back multiple times. And to me, that's the saddest part about the situation is if police officers are trained properly, they're not trained to shoot you in the back, they're trained to shoot you in the front. Obviously, they shot him in the back. He was no threat to whomever shot him. And that's the part that I will always take away is that whoever did that to me, that sounds like shooting a defenseless person. That's not fair.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. And, I've been through the pictures, I've seen it, and it's as horrific as anything you could imagine. That's all I know. And when I saw them, that's when I decided to go full throttle into this and never look back. This is it. I mean, I'm dedicating my existence to Demetrius, but also to you, also to Junior Bryant, also to Nick Smith, also to everyone that was there in that time and place, because it was a unique and special thing that we had. And not one of us should be left behind. I don't care who you are. And for me, Demetrius was really kind to me, just like you were. We didn't hang out a lot off the field. Neither did you or I. But if this had happened to you, I'd be screaming your name and doing this for you. It'd be the same thing, same story. And I ask everyone that comes on to look at me and talk to me as if I was Demo, and to say one last thing. This is your chance, because I really do feel like he's still around. The fact that we're talking about him right now, the fact that people are coming together around him, means that he never can really die, that his story can continue forever, and hopefully give people pause with this issue of racial injustice and police brutality. Maybe Demo's story can be the one that allows us as a country and as a world to raise our understanding of each other as humans. And that's my hope. But I want you to just say the words that you would love to say if he was still here.
Well, the number one thing I want Demetrius to know is that I loved him then and I love him today. I share his story with many of my friends. I was telling a friend of mine about this opportunity today that I was going to be speaking about. And as I was sharing with her who he was, and I told her a few stories, she said, "Oh yeah, I remember you talking about him," because I talk about him as if he is still here today, and I share our memories, our times together, things that happened with us. And so it's almost like talking about a friend that you had dinner with last week, and you tell another friend, they're like, "Oh yeah, I remember that," and that's how common it is for people to know about Demetrius when they talk to me, because I talk about him to this day. And so I want Demetrius to know that he's not forgotten, and that first time I can see the smile on his face the day I met him on campus, or when we were in high school, when we were working on deciding to go to Notre Dame. And I want him to know that we love him for his faults, we love him for his successes, because we are all Demetrius DuBose. I'll never forget him, and I look forward to seeing him again one day, because I think he's looking down on top of us right now saying, "I miss you guys, and I can't wait to see you guys again." So I just want Demetrius to know, man, that he's in our hearts, he's in our souls. Every time I talk to another brother about him, we smile and we talk about great memories of him, because all of us have so many great memories of the person Demetrius was. I just want him to know, man, that he's not forgotten. It feels like it was just a couple years ago, and it's been 21 years ago that he's passed. But you know what? Not a day goes by when I think about my Notre Dame brothers, I guarantee you one thing, that he's always in the center of conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, my man. That's beautiful. It really is, Irv. and I'm sure he's thrilled to hear what you said. And there's one last thing. This is your chance just to say anything else you want. It can be about anything. But just to wrap it up, I want you to just flow, say whatever comes from your heart.
Well, I just want anybody that's listening to this, and especially young Black men, to understand that our job every day when we leave our houses is to make it home to our family alive. It doesn't really, I'm not trying to be a martyr. If something happens where I'm in the middle of, whether it be police violence, whether it be gang violence, whether it be being in the wrong place at the wrong time, our job is to make it home to our family safe and sound. So at the end of the day, guys, just be careful, protect yourself, protect others, love everybody. If you leave with love, you hopefully will get love back in return. I'll tell you a short story, man. I was at this gas station, it was yesterday, the day before yesterday, I was getting some gas. I went inside to get a drink, and it's hot out here, man. It's 115 degrees, and my goal every day, man, when I see people is just to say hi. A lot of times you're walking by people and everybody wants to look like this, and they don't want to look to the right or left. Well, if you're walking by me, I'm gonna look at you. I'm gonna stare at you until you look at me, and when you look at me, I'm gonna say, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, have a great day." Because my dad's birthday was yesterday. My dad passed away 2 years ago. But my dad's birthday was yesterday. My dad taught me as a kid. He taught me one thing. He said, "Irv, it doesn't cost you a dime to be nice to people." And so my goal when I see people, man, is to look them in the eye, catch their eye, and say, "How are you?" And then I hope you have a great day. It's just that's two things I say to people. "Hey, how you doing today?" "I'm great." "Okay, great." "Hey, I hope you have a great day." So I go in the store and I see a few people. I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" It's like I just felt like, "Hey, how you doing? How you doing?" Went about my business, got my drink, wait in line, get to the counter, and I put my drink up, and lady's like, "Are you getting anything else?" I said, "No." She said, "Your drink's paid for." I was like, "What you mean? Somebody paid for it?" I'm looking around like, and everybody was gone, and I was like, "Damn!" It was like $1.50 drink, but man, it made me feel so good because I don't know who it was that I touched. Maybe somebody was having a bad day. And I don't know who it was. Still don't know who it was, and never will. But somebody paid for my drink because I said hi to them and I asked them how their day was. Don't know who it was. But I'm telling you right now, man, if you do that, man, you go away to be nice to people, man. Good stuff's gonna come back to you, man, and you're gonna make sure that when you leave your house every day, hopefully you will get home to your family safe.
Yeah, that's really insightful, and you're a highly evolved, beautiful human being, Irv Smith. And I really want you to know how much I love you and respect you, and hope that I do right by you with this and this project, and that we're gonna go forward with love in our hearts. We're gonna be kind to people. And I'm sure your father's looking down, and he's really proud of you because you always have been kind. You've always treated others by the golden rule. And I can tell you one thing, the next time I see you, I'll definitely buy you at least one drink.
Well, John, let me share this with you before you get off the line, man. I was looking through some threads the other day regarding the event that you and Oscar went to, and just so you know, I watched the whole thing, and I watched Jeff Burr. I've been watching it. I've been keeping on all this stuff because I've been so happy to see what you're doing. And somebody made a comment. They said, "John Kouris," he said, "you are the right person for this project." I saw that and I said to myself, man, they never lie. Like, you are the right person for this. I mean, think about this, man. There's all of us guys that, knew Demo from day one, and we're so blessed what you're doing, but we're like, that's the right guy to do this, though. And I mean, although you played with Demetrius for 1 year, you captured the essence of this whole thing. And I want to thank you for that, man, because you're bringing Demetrius back to all of us. And I thank you. And I once again say as well, you're the right person for this project. I thank you.
No, man, I can't, you don't even know how much that means to me to hear. And I thank you. And just, if you could just help me share the word about it, because I want this piece, what we're doing right now, to be in classrooms and museums. And I want it to be a continuing education piece. And then it will lead up to the traditional documentary that's already filmed. And we have over an hour edited, and it's looking beautiful. And I know you'll be proud. So absolutely. I love you so much, Irv. Thank you.
Love you, brother. Salute to you, man.
All right. Bye.